The appraiser's hands were shaking as she held the magnifying glass over the lace. "Mrs. Morrison," she whispered, "do you have any idea what you're holding?" I looked down at the yellowed fabric in my lap, the same fabric my daughter had called trash 3 days earlier. The same dress I'd worn on the happiest day of my life. The same dress I'd found crumpled in a dumpster behind my own daughter's house. "It's my wedding dress," I said quietly. Or it was. She set down the magnifying glass and looked at me with something between awe and disbelief. "This isn't just a wedding dress. This is a 1959 original Priscilla of Boston. Do you understand what that means?" I didn't. Not yet, but I was about to. Based on the condition, the provenance, and the designer, we're looking at $15,000, possibly more at auction. The room started spinning. $15,000 in the dumpster. My wedding dress. My daughter. That's when I stopped crying and called my lawyer. My name is Ellen Morrison, and I'm 72 years old. I've lived in Westfield, Massachusetts my entire life. Born here, raised here, married here. I taught 3rd grade for 37 years at Lincoln Elementary. I have 2 children, 5 grandchildren, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a family I could trust. I'm telling you this story not because I want sympathy, though Lord knows I've cried enough tears over it. I'm telling you this because I think there are other women out there, women my age, women who've spent their whole lives putting their families first, who need to hear it, who need to know that sometimes the people we love most are capable of things we never imagined, and that it's okay to stand up for yourself even when it breaks your heart to do it. This story begins where so many of our stories begin, with love, with trust, and with the things we hold precious. My wedding dress wasn't just a dress. I know that sounds silly to say. Of course it wasn't just a dress. But I need you to understand what it meant to me. I married Robert Morrison on June 13, 1959. I was 20 years old, fresh out of teacher's college, wearing a dress my mother and I had saved for 2 years to afford. A Priscilla of Boston original. We'd seen it in a magazine and fallen in love with it. The delicate chantilly lace, the fitted bodice, the way the silk taffeta skirt caught the light. It cost $250, which in 1959 was a small fortune. My father worked double shifts at the mill for 6 months to help pay for it. I wore that dress for 4 hours on my wedding day. I can still remember how it felt. The weight of the fabric, the way the lace scratched slightly against my wrists, the swish of the skirt when I walked down the aisle, Robert's face when he saw me, the way his voice cracked when he said his vows. We had 43 years together before the cancer took him, 43 years of teaching careers, and mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences and family dinners. We raised 2 children in a little Cape Cod house on Maple Street. We weren't rich, but we were happy. We were so happy. After Robert died in 2002, that dress became even more precious to me. It was kept in a special preservation box in my bedroom closet, wrapped in acid-free tissue paper. I'd take it out sometimes just to look at it, to remember, to feel close to him again. My daughter Jennifer knew this. She knew what that dress meant to me, or at least I thought she did. Jennifer is my eldest. She's 48 now, married to a man named Derek, mother to 2 teenagers. She works in real estate, very successful, very driven. Her brother Michael lives in Oregon, works as a park ranger. We talk on the phone every week, but I only see him maybe once a year. Jennifer, though, she lives just 20 minutes away in Cheshire. Or she did, until this all happened. About 2 years ago, Jennifer started bringing up the idea of me moving into assisted living. "Mom, you're 70, she'd say. "That house is too big for one person. What if you fall? What if something happens?" "I'm fine, Jenny," I'd tell her. I called her Jenny, the way I had when she was little. "I have my garden club, my bridge group. Mrs. Patterson next door checks on me every day." But she kept pushing. Every visit, every phone call, it was the same conversation. "The house is too much. You're getting older. We worry about you." Derek would nod along, backing her up. "There's a lovely facility in Northampton, Ellen. climate-controlled apartments, activities, a nurse on staff 24/7. I didn't want a climate-controlled apartment. I wanted my home. I wanted my garden where Robert and I had planted tomatoes every spring. I wanted my kitchen where I'd baked birthday cakes for my grandchildren. I wanted my memories. But Jennifer wouldn't let it go. The conversations became arguments. The arguments became something colder, a distance that grew between us. She started visiting less often. The phone calls became shorter. I felt it, the way you feel a storm coming, but I didn't understand why. Then 6 months ago, she showed up at my door with papers. "Mom, we need to talk." She didn't hug me when she came in, just walked straight to the kitchen table and spread out documents like she was closing a real estate deal. "What's all this?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Power of attorney papers, medical directive, and information about Meadowbrook Senior Living. She slid a glossy brochure across the table. "They have an opening, a really nice 2-bedroom unit. I've already scheduled a tour for next week." My chest felt tight. "Jennifer, I've told you. Mom, please." She rubbed her temples like I was the one being difficult. "I can't keep worrying about you like this. Do you know how stressful it is? Driving over here to check on you, wondering if you've taken your medications, if you've eaten properly. I'm 72, not 92. I take my medications. I cook my meals. I'm perfectly capable. Are you?" She leaned forward. "Because 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Patterson called me in a panic because you left your stove on. You could have burned the house down." I felt my face flush. I'd been making tea and got distracted when Caroline from Bridge Club called. I'd caught it within 10 minutes. Mrs. Patterson had made it sound like I'd left the house with flames shooting from the burners. That was one time. It only takes one time, Mom. Her voice softened, became almost patronizing. "I'm not trying to upset you. I'm trying to help. We all are. Derek thinks this is the right move. Even Michael agrees. You talked to Michael about this. Behind my back?" "It's not behind your back. It's family looking out for family." She pushed the papers closer. "Just sign these. It'll make everything easier. I can help manage your affairs, make sure your bills are paid, help you transition to Meadowbrook." "No." The word came out harder than I intended. Jennifer's jaw tightened. "Mom, no, Jennifer. This is my house, my life. I'm not signing anything, and I'm not moving to some facility to sit around playing bingo and waiting to die." The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Jennifer stood up, gathering her papers with sharp, angry movements. "Fine," she said, "but don't come crying to me when you can't manage anymore. Don't expect me to drop everything when you fall down those stairs or forget to turn off the stove again or end up in the hospital because you're too stubborn to accept help." She left, didn't say goodbye, just walked out and got in her Mercedes and drove away. That was the last real conversation we had for months. 3 months ago, on a Tuesday afternoon in August, I drove over to Jennifer's house. I know I wasn't exactly welcome anymore, but it was my granddaughter Sophie's 16th birthday, and I'd made her favorite lemon cake. Some traditions are more important than family feuds. No one answered when I knocked. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I knew Jennifer's work schedule. She should have been home. I walked around back, thinking maybe they were in the yard. That's when I saw the dumpster. Not a regular trash can, one of those industrial construction dumpsters, the kind you rent when you're doing major renovations or cleaning out entire houses. It was sitting in their driveway, nearly full. I almost didn't look, almost just left the cake on the back porch and went home. But something made me walk closer, maybe intuition, maybe just an old woman's curiosity. At first, I just saw construction debris, broken drywall, old lumber, contractor bags. Then I saw the corner of something white, something that caught the sunlight in a way that made my heart stop. Lace. I climbed up on the edge of that dumpster, 72 years old, my knees screaming in protest. But I climbed up and I pulled. It was wrapped in a black garbage bag, but the bag had torn. And through that tear, I saw it. The delicate Chantilly lace, the hand-stitched seed pearls, the silk that I had worn on the happiest day of my life, my wedding dress, in the trash, like garbage. I don't remember climbing down. I don't remember how I got it to my car. I just remember sitting in Jennifer's driveway, this filthy garbage bag in my lap, pulling out pieces of my dress, and not believing what I was seeing. It was dirty. There were stains from whatever else had been thrown on top of it. Some of the tula was crushed, but it was intact. It was whole, and it was absolutely, undeniably my wedding dress. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely start the car. I went straight home. I didn't call. I didn't text. I laid the dress out on my bed and I stared at it for hours, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Jennifer had a key to my house. She'd had one since she was 16. I'd never changed the locks, never thought I needed to. We were family. You trust family. But looking at that dress, I realized what must have happened. She'd been in my house, probably while I was at bridge club or grocery shopping or one of my doctor's appointments. She'd gone into my closet, taken the dress, and thrown it away. My wedding dress. The one thing I'd told her, explicitly, repeatedly, was sacred to me. I waited until the next morning to call her. I wanted to be calm, rational. I wanted to give her a chance to explain, even though I couldn't imagine what explanation could possibly make this okay. Jennifer, I need to talk to you about something I found. There was a pause on the other end. Mom, I'm at work. Can this wait? No, it can't wait. Yesterday I stopped by your house to drop off Sophie's birthday cake. There was a dumpster in your driveway. Another pause, longer this time. Yeah, Derek and I are remodeling the basement. What about it? I found something in that dumpster, Jennifer. Something that belonged to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Her voice was different now, guarded. My wedding dress. My wedding dress was in your trash. Silence. Jennifer? Mom, that old thing was taking up space. You haven't worn it in decades. It was just sitting in a box, collecting dust. Just sitting. I couldn't breathe. Jennifer, that was my dress. From my wedding. You had no right. I had every right. Do you have any idea how much clutter you have in that house? You're going to end up like one of those hoarders on TV, buried under piles of useless junk you can't let go of. I was helping you. I took a few things you don't need anymore. A few things. My voice was rising. What else did you take, Jennifer? What else did you steal from my house and throw away? I didn't steal anything. And honestly, Mom, this reaction is exactly why we're worried about you, getting hysterical over some old fabric. It's not old fabric. It was my wedding dress. It was from my wedding to your father. It's just a dress, Mom. Dad's been dead for over 20 years. Maybe it's time you let go of some of these things and moved on with your life instead of living in a shrine to the past. I hung up on her, just pressed the button and ended the call. Then I sat on my bed next to that old fabric, and I cried harder than I'd cried since Robert's funeral. But here's the thing about being 72 years old. You don't have energy left for long crying sessions. Eventually, the tears dry up, and you're left with a choice. Curl up and let it destroy you, or stand up and do something about it. I chose to stand up. I didn't know anything about vintage clothing or appraisals or any of that. But I knew Sylvia Henderson from my bridge club had a daughter who worked at an antique shop in Northampton. I called Sylvia, got the number, and made an appointment. I have an old wedding dress, I told the woman on the phone, from 1959. I'd like to know if it has any value. She sounded skeptical. Most wedding dresses from that era aren't worth much unless they're designer pieces or in exceptional condition. It's a Priscilla of Boston, I said, and except for some dirt, it's in very good condition. Her tone changed immediately. Can you bring it in tomorrow? The shop was called Heritage Estate Services. Small place cluttered with furniture and artwork and jewelry in glass cases. The woman who met me was maybe 45, dressed professionally with glasses on a chain around her neck. I'm Diana Castellano, she said, shaking my hand. You must be Ellen. May I see the dress? I'd cleaned it as best I could at home, using gentle soap and distilled water like I'd learned from a YouTube video. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. I'd brought it in the original preservation box, wrapped carefully in tissue paper. Diana's eyes widened the moment she saw it. She pulled on white cotton gloves before touching it, lifting it carefully from the box. "My God," she whispered. "This is authentic. 1959, you said?" "June 1959. She examined every inch, the lace, the stitching, the construction, the label inside. She took photographs. She made notes. She pulled out reference books and compared details. The examination took over an hour. Finally, she set down her magnifying glass and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Mrs. Morrison, do you have any idea what you're holding?" That's when she told me about the $15,000. I sat there in shock as she explained. Priscilla of Boston was one of the most prestigious bridal houses in America. Their dresses from the late 1950s, especially in this condition, were highly sought after by collectors and vintage enthusiasts. The Chantilly lace alone was worth thousands. That type of lace isn't made the same way anymore. The hand stitching, the construction techniques, the historical significance. If we were to consign this to a specialty auction house with proper documentation and provenance, I believe we could achieve $15,000 to $18,000, Diana said. Possibly more if the right buyer is interested. $15,000 in the dumpster. My daughter had thrown $15,000 in the trash and told me it was just old fabric. I drove home in a daze. $15,000. But it wasn't really about the money. It was about what the dress meant, what it represented. It was about Jennifer looking at something precious to me, something sacred, and seeing only trash to be discarded. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the conversation with Jennifer, about the things she'd said. I took a few things you don't need anymore. A few things. I got out of bed at 2 a.m. and I started looking, really looking, at my house, my belongings, my life, my mother's china, the set she'd gotten as a wedding gift that I'd inherited when she passed, that I'd promised to give to Jennifer someday. I kept it in the dining room hutch, only used it for special occasions. 6 place settings were gone. Robert's war medals from Korea. He'd been so proud of them, kept them in a shadow box in his study. The shadow box was still there, but 2 of the medals were missing. My grandmother's silver mirror and brush set. Gone from my vanity. A first edition book of Robert Frost poems that Robert had given me for our 10th anniversary. Gone from the bookshelf. I walked through my house like a stranger, discovering what had been stolen from me. Not stolen by a burglar who'd broken in, stolen by my own daughter who had a key, who had access, who I'd trusted with everything. I made a list. Everything I could identify as missing. By the time the sun came up, I had 2 pages of items. How many times had she been in my house? How long had this been going on? And then I thought about those power of attorney papers, about how insistent she'd been that I sign them, about how angry she'd gotten when I refused. If I'd signed those papers, given her legal control over my finances, my property, my decisions, what would have happened to me? Would I have woken up one day to find myself in Meadowbrook Senior Living, my house sold, my belongings disposed of, without any say in the matter? The thought made me physically sick. That morning I called Bernard Novak. He'd been Robert's lawyer, handled our wills and estate planning back in the day. He was semi-retired now, but he'd always told me to call if I ever needed anything. "Ellen, how wonderful to hear from you," he said warmly. "What can I do for you?" "Bernard, I need to know my rights. My daughter has been taking things from my house without permission, valuable things, and I think she's been trying to manipulate me into signing over power of attorney so she can—" My voice broke. "So she can take control of everything." The warmth in his voice shifted to concern. "Ellen, tell me everything. Start from the beginning." I told him. The pressure to move into assisted living, the power of attorney papers, the missing items, the wedding dress in the dumpster. There was a long silence when I finished. "Ellen, I'm very sorry this is happening to you. Unfortunately, it's more common than you might think. What you're describing is a form of elder financial abuse and exploitation. Your daughter has been systematically removing items from your home without consent, which is theft. The attempt to pressure you into signing legal documents through manipulation and isolation is exploitation. These are serious matters. What can I do? First, we need to protect you and your assets immediately. Have you signed any documents giving Jennifer access to your finances or decision-making? No, I refused. Good, keep refusing. Don't sign anything she brings you, no matter what she says. Second, change your locks today. She cannot have continued access to your home. Third, I need you to document everything. Make a complete list of missing items with descriptions and approximate values. Photograph everything that remains. If you have receipts, photos, or documentation of the missing items, gather that as well. Fourth, we may need to involve Adult Protective Services, depending on how you want to proceed. My hands were shaking. Adult Protective Services. Like I was some helpless victim who couldn't take care of herself. Bernard seemed to sense my hesitation. Ellen, I know this is overwhelming, but you need to understand. What Jennifer is doing isn't just morally wrong. It's illegal. She's committing theft and financial exploitation. You have every right to hold her accountable. She's my daughter. I know. That's what makes this so painful. But Ellen, and I need you to really hear this, if you don't stop her now, it will escalate. I've seen cases like this. They always escalate. Today it's a dress and some family heirlooms. Tomorrow it could be forged signatures on financial documents, cleared out bank accounts, a house sold without your knowledge. She's already shown she has no respect for your autonomy or your property. What do you think happens if she gets legal control over your life? I closed my eyes. I knew he was right. I'd known it since the moment I pulled that dress from the dumpster. What do I do? We fight back, Bernard said simply. We protect you, we recover what we can, and we make sure this never happens again. The locksmith came that afternoon. Nice young man named Tommy, probably around 30. He changed all my locks, front door, back door, cellar door, installed deadbolts. When he was done, I had 5 new keys and the certain knowledge that Jennifer could no longer walk into my house whenever she pleased. I spent the rest of the day documenting everything. I photographed every room, every shelf, every drawer. I went through old photo albums and found pictures from holiday gatherings where you could see the china in the background, the shadow box with the medals on the wall, the silver mirror set on my vanity. I wrote down everything I remembered about each missing item, where it came from, when I got it, what it meant to me. Bernard had me appraise the wedding dress officially, which I did through Diana at Heritage Estate Services. She provided a formal written appraisal, signed and dated, documenting the dress's provenance and value, $15,000. The next day, Bernard filed a police report on my behalf. I had to go to the station, sit in a small room with a detective named Maria Santos, and tell my story all over again. Detective Santos was probably in her 40s, patient and kind in a way that made me feel less foolish for reporting my own daughter. Mrs. Morrison, I know this is difficult, she said, but you're doing the right thing. Elder abuse cases often go unreported because victims are embarrassed or afraid of breaking up the family. But what your daughter did, breaking into your home, taking your property, these are crimes. You have every right to press charges. What happens now? We'll investigate. I'll need to interview your daughter, see her responses. We'll request an itemized list of what was thrown away in that dumpster, see if she still has any of the items she took from your home. Depending on what we find and whether she cooperates, the district attorney will decide whether to bring formal charges. What kind of charges? Based on what you've described, we're looking at potential larceny, trespassing, possibly attempted financial exploitation of the elderly. If the value of stolen items exceeds certain thresholds, some charges could be felonies. Felonies. My daughter. My Jenny. I felt sick, but I didn't back down. Jennifer called me that evening. I saw her name on the caller ID and almost didn't answer. But I needed to hear what she had to say. Mom, what the hell? She was furious. The police just showed up at my work. At my work, Mom, asking me about your wedding dress and some ridiculous accusations about stealing from you. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Not as humiliating as finding my wedding dress in a dumpster. Oh my God, you actually called the police? Over a dress? Over my dress, and my mother's china, and Robert's medals, and everything else you stole from me, Jennifer. Yes, I called the police. What did you expect me to do? I expected you to act like an adult instead of throwing some childish tantrum. I was helping you declutter. You have too much stuff, Mom. You're living in the past, hoarding all this junk. It's not junk. It's my life, my memories, my property. You had no right to take any of it. I have every right to be concerned about my elderly mother, who clearly can't take care of herself or make rational decisions anymore. Stop it. Stop trying to make me sound incompetent. I'm 72 years old, Jennifer. I'm not senile. I'm not incompetent. I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions, and my decision is that I want you out of my life until you return everything you took and apologize. You want me to apologize? I was trying to help you. Everything I've done has been because I love you and I'm worried about you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have thrown away my wedding dress. If you loved me, you wouldn't have stolen from me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have tried to manipulate me into signing over power of attorney so you could what, Jennifer? Sell my house? Take control of my money? That's not, I never... She was sputtering now. I can't believe you're accusing me of this. After everything I've done for you, I've been the one taking care of you since Dad died, driving over there, checking on you, making sure you're okay. You mean breaking into my house and stealing things while I was out? I used my key, Mom. The key you gave me. I didn't break in anywhere. You don't have that key anymore. I changed the locks this morning. The silence on the other end was absolute. You changed the locks, she finally said, her voice cold. You changed the locks on me, your own daughter. You stole from me, your own mother. Fine, fine. If that's how you want to play this, then fine. Don't come crying to me when you end up falling and breaking your hip and there's no one there to help you. Don't call me when you run out of your medications or forget to pay your bills or need a ride to the doctor. You want to be independent? You want to be alone? Congratulations, Mom. You got your wish. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, shaking, tears running down my face. But underneath the hurt and the betrayal, there was something else. Something hard and clear and certain. Relief. Detective Santos called me 3 days later. Mrs. Morrison, I wanted to update you on the investigation. We executed a search warrant at your daughter's home yesterday. My heart jumped. And? We recovered several items matching your descriptions. A set of china, some pieces of silver, books, photographs. They were in her basement storage, not disposed of. She's claiming they were gifts, that you gave them to her. I never gave her those things. I told her repeatedly that the china was being saved for her, but I never gave it to her. It was still in my house, in my hutch, until it wasn't. We also found receipts from an estate buyer for several items sold in the past 6 months. She received approximately $4,000 for various antiques and collectibles. She's claiming those were items she inherited from her father's estate. Robert left everything to me. Everything. I have the will, the probate documents. She didn't inherit anything except what I chose to give her. Can you send me copies of those documents? I'll have my lawyer send them today. One more thing. The wedding dress. She's admitting she took it and threw it away. Her statement is that she believed it was moldy and unsanitary, that she was concerned about your health, and that she disposed of it for your own safety. That's a lie. The dress was in a sealed preservation box. There was no mold. I know. We have the appraisal report showing the dress's condition. Mrs. Morrison, based on the evidence we've gathered, the DA's office is moving forward with charges. Your daughter will be formally charged with larceny over $1,200, a felony, as well as misdemeanor charges of trespassing and attempted financial exploitation of an elder. Felony charges against my daughter. What happens now? She'll be arraigned, probably next week. She'll be given the opportunity to enter a plea. If she pleads not guilty, there will be a trial. If she pleads guilty or accepts a plea bargain, we'll move to sentencing. The DA will be in touch with you about victim impact statements and restitution. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, looking at the empty space on the shelves where my mother's china used to be. This was real now. This wasn't just a family dispute or hurt feelings. My daughter was being charged with crimes. There would be a trial, possibly jail time, definitely a criminal record. Part of me wanted to take it all back, to call Detective Santos and say I'd made a mistake, that we'd worked it out, that I didn't want to press charges after all. But I didn't make that call. Because what Jennifer had done wasn't just about taking some things from my house, it was about control, about deciding that she knew better than I did what I needed, what I should keep, how I should live. It was about looking at my autonomy, my dignity, my right to make decisions about my own life, and deciding it didn't matter. And if I let that go, if I swept it under the rug for the sake of family harmony, I wasn't just forgiving her. I was telling her she was right. I was saying, yes, you can treat me this way. Yes, I am incapable. Yes, you should make decisions for me because I'm too old, too sentimental, too foolish to know what's good for me. I'd spent 72 years being kind, being understanding, putting other people's feelings before my own. Not this time. Jennifer took a plea deal. Her lawyer advised her that the evidence was overwhelming. The recovered items, the receipts, the appraiser's testimony about the dress, the paper trail of her attempts to pressure me into signing power of attorney. If it went to trial, she'd likely be convicted on all counts. She pleaded guilty to felony larceny and misdemeanor elder exploitation. The sentence was 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory counseling, and full restitution. The judge ordered her to return all items still in her possession and to compensate me for the fair market value of items that had been sold or destroyed. That included the full appraised value of the Agatis wedding dress, $15,000. I stood in the courtroom when she was sentenced. She didn't look at me once. Her husband Derek sat beside her, stony-faced. My son Michael flew in from Oregon to be with me. He'd been appalled when I told him everything, said he'd had no idea Jennifer was pushing so hard for me to move, that she'd completely misrepresented my situation to him. "I thought you were struggling, Mom," he told me the night before the sentencing. "She made it sound like you were forgetting things constantly, leaving the stove on all the time, that you couldn't manage the house." I had no idea she was lying. "She wasn't lying," I said quietly. She was telling herself a story where she was the hero, saving her incompetent mother from herself. I think she actually believed it. When the sentencing was done, when the judge had spoken and the bailiff had led everyone out, I stood in the courthouse hallway with Michael. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I did what I had to do, but it doesn't feel good." "It's not supposed to feel good, Mom. It's just supposed to be right." The money came in installments. Jennifer sold items to pay me back. Jewelry, furniture, things that had been hers. I put most of it in a savings account. I didn't need it, not really. My teacher's pension and Robert's death benefits have always been enough. But I kept the dress. Diana from Heritage Estate Services connected me with a restoration specialist who was able to clean and preserve it properly. It's back in its preservation box now, back in my closet. I'll never wear it again. But it's mine. It's here. It's safe. I see my grandchildren sometimes. Sophie comes to visit on her own now that she can drive. She asks about what happened with her mom, and I try to be honest without turning her against Jennifer. My grandson, Jason, is still distant. He's angry with me for sending his mom to court, as he puts it. Maybe someday he'll understand. I don't see Jennifer. The restraining order that was part of her sentence prohibits contact for the duration of her probation. After that, I don't know. I don't know if she'll ever apologize, if she'll ever truly understand what she did. I don't know if we'll ever have a relationship again. Some days I feel guilty. Like I destroyed my family over some old things, some dusty heirlooms, some fabric from a dress I wore 66 years ago. But then I remember what this was really about. It wasn't about the things. It was about my right to make decisions about my own life, my right to live in my own home, to keep my own belongings, to not be controlled or manipulated by someone who claimed to know what was best for me better than I knew myself. I'm 72 years old. I still live in my house on Maple Street. I still have my bridge club and my garden club and my Tuesday afternoon coffee with Sylvia Henderson. Mrs. Patterson still checks on me, though now she knows to actually ask me if everything is okay instead of calling my daughter behind my back. I'm not rich. I'm not powerful. I'm just an old woman who taught third grade and loved her husband and tried to raise her children right. But I'm not a victim. And that wedding dress, that beautiful, precious, irreplaceable dress, is exactly where it belongs. In my closet, in my house, under my control, where no one can ever throw it away again.